Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you can all remain standing for just a quick moment of silence in honor of our president. Thank you. Madam Secretary, will you please note the roll?
Chairman Bray is present. Vice Chairman Barnes is present. Commissioner Steiner is present. Commissioner Maloney is present. Commissioner Walters is present. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. With that, can I get a motion to excuse Commissioner Kish and Commissioner Keys from this evening's meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Steiner, seconded by Commissioner Walters to excuse Commissioner Kish and Commissioner Keys. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda item number 4 is the minutes. They have been provided. Draft minutes are in the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting from November 14, 2008. Those are online. Is there any discussion, or can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes from November 14th.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Barnes, seconded by Commissioner Walters to approve, Steiner, to approve the minutes from November 14, 2018. Is there any discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Agenda item number 5 is public comments. Now is a time for citizens who would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any non-agenda items. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the commission at this time? No speakers cards? All right, thank you. Agenda item number 6 is disclosure of ex parte communication. This is the opportunity for commissioner members to disclose any ex parte communication prior to this meeting. Is there any disclosures at this time?
No.
Nope.
Perfect. Being no old business, we will move right into new business, and I will start with agenda item 8.1. I will open the public hearing on the rezone of the Phoenix 1011 property from final PAD to light industrial with PAD overlay. Karen?
Mr. Chairman, before Karen begins her presentation, just for clarity for yourselves, ourselves, and our audience members, there are 5 Planning Commission members. It does take an affirmative vote of 4 of the commissioners to pass a motion, just for everybody's clarity.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. The subject property for this rezone application is 279 acres that was recently purchased by a technology company. The property is south of the airport, south of MC 85. It extends from MC 85 to Broadway Road. And it is an undeveloped agricultural piece of property that is east of Bullard and west of Litchfield. It's a section right in the middle with no development on it currently except for a city water tank. The property owner has submitted this rezone to I-1 Light Industrial with a PAD overlay. The PAD overlay is to request a maximum allowed building height of 60 feet rather than 50, and a maximum building coverage of 60% rather than 50. The PAD overlay also provides for the use of metal buildings in this development of the technology center, as well as chain link fencing. Staff supports the 2 changes to the development standards themselves, but because metal buildings and chain link fencing are not supported by the literal interpretation of the design guidelines, staff naturally had some concerns. So we requested that the applicant, when they made their site plan submittal, to provide building elevations to us, as most applicants do that come before you, so that we could see just in fact what they were talking about when they said metal buildings, because the interpretation can be different. So they sent us photos of an existing facility. So as you can see, metal building in the middle, exterior equipment on the outside, these being data center buildings. There are chillers and air conditioning units, generators, all on the outside of the buildings, with the computers being on the inside of those metal buildings. You know, obviously this is under construction, but this is an existing facility. So to show you how this would all line out on the site, this was the site plan that was submitted to us and is under review. MC 85 up here, Broadway Road down here, access to the property here, and these would be the first 2 of 5 data center buildings that would be constructed. Within the dark black line is the metal building itself, and then on either side of that, in these little areas here, is where that exterior equipment would be located. So again, because the metal buildings don't meet the city design guidelines, we started to think about, as staff, about the locational criteria of this property. You know, as I said, it's in the vicinity of MC 85, the railroad, the airport, which all have, or the airport has existing metal buildings. It occurs in an area where there are older buildings that were constructed prior to the current city design guidelines. It only has 2 street frontages, MC 85 and Broadway Road, which really kind of makes it easy to buffer these buildings. You can create good, strong buffers along those roadways and have the metal buildings on the interior of the site. It also, you know, this property isn't up along Interstate 10 where everybody's going by, and we're trying to develop some high-end office use and other buildings that do currently meet our design guidelines. It's also not where too many people in the city travel by. You know, if you're going up and down Cotton Lane, you can go from one end of the city to another. If you're going up and down Estrella Parkway, you're going from one end of the city to another. And those are the roadways that most people use, I think, in the city. This area of the city is more like you're only over there because you're going over there for something specific. So, and I guess probably one of the major things was it's not in the vicinity of residential development. Had there been residential development right near the site, you know, then you got to meet the design guidelines. But once we kind of put all the factors together about where this property is located, we thought perhaps with some good berming and good screening, it may be just fine. So we worked with the applicant extensively and came up with this. They prepared the site visibility study for us, and they also prepared some plans for berming and landscaping of the frontages. So down here, this is, in the same sort of berming will occur up on MC 85, but right now the first 2 buildings are going to be constructed down by Broadway. So here you are on Broadway Road. And there's a 30-foot landscape buffer here on a 6-to-1 sloping berm. So as you move into the site, this is about 50 feet into the site. And then there's a security fence, and there's retention ponds, and then there's another upslope to the perimeter road around the buildings. and then you finally get to the buildings and the outside equipment. So that's like 325 feet away from where the general public may happen to be driving by on Broadway. So to us, it seemed like, okay, with the locational criteria or characteristics of the property, this exhibit for berming and landscaping, we thought we can support this. We can support this request here. I do, though, since we sent you the original stipulations of approval, I wanted to talk to you about some. Heather, do they have copies of this? Okay, thanks. There's also a WAPA power line easement that runs along Broadway Road. There's some pretty tall power poles right along Broadway Road that WAPA owns. And they do have some restrictions on what can be planted within their easement. So although, applicant and staff have come to a good conclusion and a good consensus on what would be good buffering, there may be some restrictions put on it by WAPA. So we wanted to add the last sentence to this that, yes, we have this exhibit, yes, we have this agreement, but we also know that it needs to meet with WAPA's approval, and then whatever changes, if perhaps changes are required, they also need to meet with our approval. So that's the change to stipulation number 2. We had stipulation number 3 that talked about an undulating berm. Again, we wanted to just sort of make sure we didn't end up with a big pile of dirt along the roadway. But with that 6-to-1 slope that we've agreed to for the berm, it should work out that there's a real gradual, gentle incline throughout that 50 feet, going up to the 6-foot maximum of the berm. It's got the trees planted all the way up, that we think that, it's going to look like a lovely rolling hillside with trees on it, as opposed to a pile of dirt. So we're happy with deleting that stipulation once the slope of 6-to-1 was put on the exhibit, and it's on there now. And then we had mentioned that the setback would be 350 feet for the exterior equipment and the buildings from Broadway Road and MC 85. The project engineers have a more precise calculation than we did, and it can actually be reduced down to 325. But, in terms of any other development in the city, the 325-foot setback is fantastic. And one final thing, we are discussing with the applicant the use of 36-inch box trees on that berm and around the buffers, around the perimeter of the site. And they're talking to their client, and so that's a discussion we are still having, and will have it prior to this case going to council on the 17th. So with those modifications to the stipulations, staff is recommending approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, go back to any of the slides if you want, or...
Thank you, Karen.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Any questions for staff at this time? Is the applicant here? Yes. Name and address for the record, and
then that's to point at stuff.
Chair and members of the commission, for your records, I'm Jordan Rose with Rose Law Group, and with me tonight is Jennifer Hall, our senior project manager, and Chad Coling from Jacobs, the engineering group that's handling the project. I just wanted to thank your staff. We've worked so closely with them. They've been on, dozens of conversations and meetings, and every day there's something, and they've been incredibly accommodating. And on behalf of my client, I just wanted to thank the city for all of the good things that they've been doing. And while we don't always agree, we always get to an answer that resolves concerns. And I think tonight is an example of that. The proposed revised stipulations we're entirely in favor of, and we just appreciate staff working with us to make this the best possible project. I have a full presentation, which I don't think we need to do, but if I have any questions, if you have any questions, please let me know. We're just very excited to be in the city, so thank you.
Is there any questions for Ms. Rose? None? All right. That was
Thank you.
easy, right?
I hope so.
All right, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this particular agenda item? Any speakers cards? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and I will ask for a motion on the rezone.
Mr. Chairman, I move the commission approve case number 18-200-00012, subject to the revised stipulations presented to the commission this evening.
I second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Walters, seconded by Commissioner Maloney to approve the rezone for the Phoenix 1011 property to light industrial with staff stipulations. Is there any discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. On to agenda 8.2. This is the special use permit for a Verizon wireless communication facility consistent with a 65-foot tall monopalm. And with that, I will open the public hearing, and Katie is presenting on this.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the commission. As you stated, this is a request for a 65-foot tall monopalm cell tower. It's proposed to be located at Goodyear Center Point, which is southeast of McDowell and Pebble Creek Parkway, and it'll be located on the east end of that property close to I-10. And the proposal, there's currently a cell tower facility in the signage. And so the proposal is basically to move that and replace it with a monopalm offsite. The proposal has been found to meet all city codes and requirements. We have not received any inquiries on the proposal. Therefore, staff recommends approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff at this time? Is the applicant here? Perfect. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Steve Siolik with Coal Creek Consulting, 2166 East University in Tempe. As mentioned in the staff report, Verizon is looking to move the existing cell tower out to a monopalm facility. While locating new facilities, we tend to co-locate on existing structures and use what is available for our antennas. In the beginning, we thought the marquee sign would be a great opportunity to hide or conceal antennas. However, upgrading the facility, we found that there's limited space for additional antennas, and additional radio heads will overheat. So that's why we're trying to move it, kind of keep it in the same location without disrupting too much of the existing community. We'll also keep the existing ground equipment in the same space behind the shopping center, so it's out of view, out of way of the traffic. So with that, I would like to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for the applicant? No. All right, thank you. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Any speakers cards? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and I will ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve agenda item 8.2, case number 18-350-00002.
I second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Walters, seconded by Commissioner Maloney to approve special use permit for the Verizon Wireless Communications Facility. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Agenda item 8.3, this is the special use permit for a church in Estrella Crossing Business Park Planned Area Development District, and I will open the public hearing, and Joe will present tonight.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, as you duly noted, this is a request for a special use permit to allow a church in a portion of a building on 5 acres in the Business Park Light Industrial area of the Estrella Crossing Business Park PAD. The property is located on Illini Drive, or Illini Street rather, west of Estrella Parkway and south of Elwood Street on a cul-de-sac bulb. The site was formerly occupied by the Arizona Republic for its printing operation. It has since been occupied by Basic Metals, which is a metal fabricating business, but it only occupies 19,552 square feet of the 25,800 square foot building. So the church is proposing to lease 6,300 square feet of the building so that to create a sanctuary and church offices. I have a floor plan exhibit that I was going to show you that I have put somewhere else. So we'll skip that for the moment and continue on with the rest of the presentation. The property is, let me back up. The church is proposing to operate on the property only on certain during certain hours and days of the week, and that will be complementary and not duplicate the hours of operation of the manufacturing use that's in the building. We have reviewed the church proposal in the context of the criteria for evaluating special use permits, and we find it to be in general conformance with those criteria. There is sufficient parking on the site. As a matter of fact, there's more than enough parking on the site. So, and the access to the site is good through Illini Street, which leads to Estrella Parkway, and then also to Elwood Street, to where there is a signalized intersection. The only potential adverse impact we noted was that the church might have on adjoining properties would be the presence, caused by the presence of a church, are certain separation requirements that are in the zoning ordinance for certain types of uses. And we have received several protest letters regarding the proposed use, and those protests focused on the fact that there would be separation requirements that would potentially come into play for certain uses. In your agenda packet, you had found copies of protest letters from several of the adjoining property owners. And since the publication of the agenda, we had received a couple more, and I distributed copies of those to you before the meeting. To give you a sense of the location of the protests, I offer this exhibit. The properties marked in red reflect the protests that were provided by the owners of the lots that are marked. And I would like to also offer an exhibit that shows what a 300-foot, a 500-foot, and a 1,000-foot separation would have, the impact that potentially could have on adjoining properties. In the zoning ordinance, there are certain uses that have a separation requirement. Adult businesses have to be 500 feet away from a church, and other types of school uses in residential districts. Medical marijuana dispensaries and cultivation are required to be 1,000 feet away from a church. However, the separation requirements for medical marijuana facilities also include a separation from any other medical marijuana facility of 1 mile. And this property is within a mile of the medical marijuana dispensary and cultivation that we have in Goodyear. So it would be precluded from being considered on this site because of that. There's brewery and microbreweries that would be allowed in an industrial area, and they're required to be 300 feet away from a church building. And then there are certain liquor licenses, which are not our regulations, but the state liquor board, that requires a separation of 300 feet. However, again, that's measured from the building, which would have a fairly limited effect. So with that being said, it's our opinion that the impact of the church on the surrounding area would be minimal, and therefore have recommended approval of the request subject to the stipulations that are in the staff report in your agenda.
Thank you, Joe. Are there any questions for staff?
I do.
Commissioner Barnes?
Can a waiver be given so that these businesses that would be affected by having a church within their proximity be then allowed? For instance, liquor licenses, those sorts of things.
Chairman Bray and Commissioner Barnes, any regulation that we have in the city code could be subject to a variance request for the separation requirement, and it could be considered. Since the hardship, if you will, was not created by the property owner and would be kind of a unique situation, it may have merit to be considered. The regulations of the state are those pertaining to liquor licenses, and their regulations are their regulations. And I'm not aware of any method or vehicle for waiving that requirement. We wouldn't have the authority locally, and I'm not aware of any provision in the liquor statutes that would allow that.
Any further questions?
No.
Joe, maybe help me remember. I remember something at one point in time that Estrella Crossing business, didn't we approve a church at one point in time there temporarily?
Chairman Bray, that's correct. The River of Life Church received a special use permit in the commercial building just immediately to the northeast of this location.
It was just, is it no longer there?
I may stand corrected, but I believe it has since moved.
Because I think it was only the term of the lease, right? The 3 years? Or however long the lease was?
I don't think we stipulated that. I think that may have just been the case.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
No.
Nope. All right. Is the applicant here? And would you like to present your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening. My name is Lupe Brown. I live at 18125 West Turney Avenue in Goodyear. I am speaking on behalf of Senior Pastor Jim Brown, who had some unforeseen medical emergencies that he had to attend to, and I'm reading what he wrote. Okay? And he put reasons for recommending approval of the special use permit for Sword of the Spirit Church. It is an established church in the community. The church consists of approximately 50 to 60 active members. It has taken time to find space that would accommodate the church and be affordable. The sublease space in the basic metals offers an excellent opportunity for the church. There is adequate space to hold the congregation and abundant parking. With the help of the planning department and the building safety department, the church has been able to come up with a plan that meets building code compliancy. SOS is not the first church in the neighborhood. As you stated, the River of Life Church was given a special use permit at the Estrella Shops in 2014 by your commission. In addition, the bingo parlor or community bingo also obtained a special use permit for its space at Estrella Shops. 3 new tenants, Estrella Mountain Insurance, Arthur Murray Dance Studio, and Beyond Gymnastics, all opened for business in the Estrella retail shops in 2017 and 18. These are very kid and family-friendly companies. 2 out of the 3 companies gives lessons to children. A church filled with families, adults, and children will fit nicely into the neighborhood of tenants. Our church will have little or no impact on the traffic area. Services are geared towards Sundays, and the property has adequate parking. All in all, the church should blend in well to the existing neighborhood. The church members will bring business to the surrounding businesses. A few of our family members live in Goodyear. As I stated, I have kids in our local schools, participant in local activities, and their patronage is done in Goodyear. We also provide church services to the local assisted facility, Merrill Gardens Memory Care, every Wednesday for our seniors and 2 Sundays out of the month for the past 3 years. Sword of the Spirit Church would be a great benefit to this community. Our hours of operation do not impede the hours of the industrial park, for we operate in the evenings and on the weekends. Thank you.
You may not be able to answer this question, but it jogs my memory now. The last church that was a temporary spot for them, and they were planning on building or moving somewhere else. Is this more of a permanent location for you guys, or is this a growth period and you're looking at a more permanent spot or building a house of worship? Or
Yeah, it's a growth period for us, and it actually gives us the opportunity. We've kind of outgrown our current space. This will give us opportunity to have a few more people.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any comments on this particular agenda item from the public? Yes, sir. So here's the rules of the game here. You come up to the podium, your name and your address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes, and Katie will kindly keep those 3 minutes, and she'll give you a 30-second warning, so feel free.
Okay, before I start my time, could I please have Mr. Schmitz put back up the concentric circles on the screen?
I think he'd be happy to do that.
Before I start my 3 minutes. My name is Terry Kirk. I am the managing partner of Kuma Development, LLC, who owns lot number 12. Also the president of Crossing Development, Inc., who owns number 13, 14, and 15. And we're also on the board of the Property Owners Association and the Architectural Control Committee. If you look at Mr. Schmitz's diagram here, it is not really correct effectively, because the problem is where you measure from separation. Before I say that, we do not have any problem with having a church in here. What we have a problem with is the separation from preclusion of activities we can do as property owners that come along with having a church, the 1,000, 500, and 300 range. Mr. Schmitz put a circle basically around the center of that property of where the church will be. That doesn't actually work as far as definitions that he supplied me. And that is, you're going to measure the 300 feet from the edge of that building. Okay? That is effectively quite a bit of difference and includes the above West Illini, includes that building in there, which houses a pizzeria right now. He is wanting to change his liquor license to go from a beer and wine to a full liquor license. He will not be able to do that if the church is in. The 1,000-foot range actually starts from the edge of the property, not the building itself. It's from the property line. And if you extend that from the property line on the north side, you go all the way across Elwood Street, and you're also blanketing all the property on Elwood right there, which is catty corner to the Goodyear Ballpark and is also in the zone where, for example, the person on Lot 8 is trying to sell that spot for anything. And she's not going to be able to put in any of the uses with the exception what it says in Mr. Schmitz's comments for adult, whatever adult is allowed. It's not. It's already been, an adult store has already been turned down and put into the Estrella Crossing Business Park. So, in summation, we do not, as property owners, do not want to lose the ability to sell our properties because of the restrictions that the church puts on as far as setbacks. I have asked Mr. Schmitz if there's any way that we could waiver setback requirements or anything like that. We've come up with, we went to the entertainment district, trying to think. Am I out of time already? Probably, okay. Anyway, thank you for your time. I hope you understand our point of view. We have properties that we want to use and to sell. And this curtails some of that use and sales. The one last thing I want to say is that Mr. Schmitz only notified people within 500 feet, okay? This goes 1,000 feet. None of the people on the 1,000-foot ring were notified.
Thank you. Is there any other comments from the public? Yes. Same thing, name and address for the record. And sir, there should be a white card right in front of Heather, a white half sheet. If you'll just fill that out for the record, I'd appreciate it. And then same with you, sir, after you finish, if you'll fill out one of those sheets, please.
I'm Brian Gleason, 15987 West Mulberry Drive, Goodyear. I just want to correct one inaccuracy. He made a comment that the shopping center owner of Estrella Crossing Business Park would not be able to have alcohol sold in the restaurant there or in the bingo parlor or anywhere in that shopping center. That is incorrect. If you measure from the northeast corner here to that building right there, that's 460 feet. He's well over the 300 foot. So he could put in alcohol and or have his tenants apply for alcohol licenses. Doesn't affect it. And those are the only existing buildings other than the basic metals building and the storage unit in Wilhelm that's in the property owner association. None of those groups would be looking for alcohol use. As far as the other items go, marijuana use, adult bookstores, strip clubs, etc. That's what they're talking about, selling the property to, and that's what's going to prevent them from doing it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments related to agenda item 8.3? No, nobody's coming. Actually, Joe, if you're getting back up to the mic, the one question I would like clarification on, let's say that pizzeria is trying to get the next level on the liquor license. Do we foresee a problem there? Will this impact them? Or is there some sort of a grandfather statute or stipulation that would not impact their business?
Okay, let me clarify one point first, if I may, Mr. Chairman, and then I will answer that question.
Yes, please.
First off, Mr. Kirk is both right and wrong, and I apologize for any confusion this is going to cause. But the first blue line, the 300-foot line, is 300 feet around the building, and that's the liquor license requirement, or it involves the liquor license separation. The 300 feet is measured from premises to premises. And so it would be from the building the church is located in to the building where the alcohol is being served. And you can see that 300-foot line, it does clip the property at the northeast corner of South 156th Avenue and Illini Street. And it does clip Mr. Kirk's property north, immediately to the north. So he is correct that could have an impact on his property. The other two lines, the 500-foot line and the 1,000-foot line, probably should have been drawn from the property line. They too were drawn not from the center of the building, but from the perimeter of the building, and those probably should have been drawn differently. The 1,000-foot line only involves medical marijuana cultivation and sale, a dispensary in cultivation. And as I noted in my earlier comments, this property is within a mile of the other dispensary, and there is a separation requirement of a mile for dispensary to dispensary, so that would be precluded. The 500 feet applies to the adult businesses. And while it's incorrectly drawn on the map, Mr. Kirk did correctly note that in the PAD for Estrella Crossing Business Park, the adult businesses are specifically prohibited. So the properties are already restricted, and that 500 feet is somewhat immaterial. Lastly, the liquor license that is currently operating. If you have a business that's within 300 feet that's currently operating and it wants to sell to another operator or change the license to a similar license, that there's a grandfather provision where they can do that if it's within 300 feet of a church. If it's a new license, in previous conversations with Mr. Kirk, he did indicate to me a concern that what if the beer and wine license wants to change to a full liquor license, that potentially would be precluded. But the restaurant license with a beer and wine license is exempt from the 300-foot requirement, so it would not be affected.
Okay. Yeah, because they would still have the food, and it wouldn't just be a pure...
It would be a restaurant license with beer and wine.
Okay, perfect. So, just so that I have clarification here, 300-foot line is correct. The 500-foot line would be more expansive because it would have been drawn a little bit differently, correct?
Yes, it would go from the property line, so it would have more effect.
And the 300-foot line, as shown today, comes nowhere close to any operating business that has any liquor license.
That is correct.
May I jump in real quick? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Joe. I just pulled up, I pulled up the actual liquor licenses off the state website, and just to confirm Joe's information, it's, restaurants, as long as they don't sell growlers, are permitted to, they don't meet the separation. So as long as the restaurant's not selling growlers, they can be within 300 feet. Furthermore, just to clarify, microbreweries would be allowed. Also wholesale distributors. So if an industrial use that wanted to distribute on a wholesale basis, those would be permitted within the buffer, and producers. So if there was any kind of brewery production facility, that would be permitted to be within the buffer of the church. microbreweries are permitted
outside of the 300 feet.
within the 300 feet.
That's not what it says in my messages from Mr. Schmidt.
Just so you know, planning and zoning are not the ones who issue liquor licenses, so we can clarify all this information with the city clerk before the city council meeting. But I have the application up, and it lists microbreweries as a Series 3 liquor license.
Okay. So what we have is Katie's got a little bit different information than what I had seen regarding the liquor licensing rules. What I told Mr. Kirk was the 300-foot separation requirement in our zoning ordinance. So we got a little bit of this going on, and I apologize for that. The state would allow it. We would require. You would have to seek a waiver from the 300 feet under the current city zoning ordinance. So, unless there's any other questions, or you're just too confused to.
No, we should probably visit that at some point to match the liquor laws, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. And obviously, why this isn't the best answer, it is clear that for a property owner, there is a legitimate way to get a variance on the property. I understand that adds more red tape, but it's clear that there is that option. So with that, is there any other questions for staff or the applicant at this time?
I have a staff question. So you listed a few different types of alcohol-related businesses that were not affected by the 300-foot buffer. So which types are prohibited in that 300-foot buffer? I didn't understand that. What are definitely prohibited within that area?
I'm a little hesitant to answer. So
Well, and I'm reading according to the state. But a bar application kit, looks like a beer and wine bar, and those two go through the lottery system. Those can be challenging to obtain, is my understanding.
You can buy them outright, though.
Right. And then a liquor store.
So liquor store, nightclub, those types of businesses would definitely not be allowed per state law. Correct.
Any further questions? Any other comments from the public? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. And with that, I will take a motion on 8.3.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a motion to approve, but I would like to add a stipulation that, and I'm not sure how to word this, so I'm looking at staff, that preference be given to existing property owners that want to apply for a waiver. And I'm not sure how to say that. I understand this goes before city council, and city council makes the final decision. We're making a recommendation to city council, but I'm not sure how to word that recommendation.
Commissioner, I would recommend against that sort of stipulation because you can't bind council. Future actions and variances have legal requirement. So I'm not sure that, it's legally enforceable without really looking at that issue.
Can we add a recommendation to city council that we also feel that in the future you should give preference to waiver applicants?
I think that it would be appropriate to direct staff to maybe revisit our separation requirements to see what we can do. We can't do much with the state, and there are certain requirements and, provisions in state law governing religious operations, religious facilities. So, you might ask and say, what can we do, what can't we do, and you might have staff revisit this. But a lot of what we're talking about here is even our regulations have been driven by state law. So we can, perhaps if state law doesn't have a specific separation requirement, we can eliminate ours and just rely on state law. if they're not requiring cities to do this, but it would require some legal research into what state law has been doing. My recollection is a lot of these came into being because of what state law has done. And, we're an inferior jurisdiction to the state of Arizona, and we have to follow what they've said.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, for just a second. We are also working diligently at the staff level to look at several different opportunities for improvement as it relates to use permits and special use permits. And as Sarah pointed out, aligning any separation distances with other higher jurisdictional requirements like the state or federal or so forth. So that is a conversation that's going to be had and presented to you. So you don't necessarily need to direct us to do that. It's already on our list. And I would also just mention, I think as Sarah mentioned, there is, obviously this has to do with the church, and there's some federal protections associated with religious activity and so on and so forth. So we are also looking at how those federal protections relate to our own ordinances as well, and what kind of latitude that we have. So just wanted to bring that up for your attention and understanding as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I will turn back to you, Commissioner Barnes. And
So I'm still not sure how I can recommend so that it goes on the record, so that one of those business properties comes up and asks for a waiver because they're within the 300 buffer zone, that it would be read into the record that this commission and possibly city council feels that they should get preferential treatment for that.
I would advise that the best way to make sure that it's on the record is to state something similar to that during the discussion after the motion is made.
Before the motion, which is
after the motion.
After the motion.
After the motion is made. Correct.
All right, we'll do it that way. Now I don't want to make the motion.
Now you don't want to make the motion. So, a motion for 8.3. Anyone?
Chairman Bray, I move that this commission approve agenda item 8.3, case number 18-350-0003.
Is there a second?
I second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Walters, seconded by Commissioner Maloney to approve the special use permit for a church in Estrella Crossing Business Park. Is there any discussion?
Now I can say that I think that existing property owners within the 300-foot buffer should be given preferential treatment on any waivers for prohibited businesses within that area. And then that will be read into the record and go in front of city council. And hopefully they'll take that up as well.
Commissioner Walters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although I made the motion, if we're called to vote, I'm going to vote nay. And the reason is that I don't think there's a clarity before tonight between staff and the concerned citizens about these circles and the impact and what's permitted and what's not. I think you heard some discussion tonight that the state requirements and the city requirements differ. It sounds like the city's requirements may be more restrictive than the state's. I don't think that there's a clarity on that, and I don't think it's wise to advance this without that clarity. That said, it only takes 4 votes. If you move it forward, there may be an opportunity for staff to clarify some things before it gets to council. But I don't think that I don't think we have complete and accurate information at this point in time.
Thank you. Any further discussion by the commissioners? I would have to agree with both Commissioner Barnes and Commissioner Walters. I think the staff has realized that we do have some crossed wires there, and I think that we do have time to hopefully correct the issue, maybe not put the property owners at complete ease, but at least everybody has the accurate information of what can and can't happen. And so I do believe that can happen. I also agree with Commissioner Barnes about looking at something that doesn't prohibit future business within the confines of the law, obviously. So with that, I will ask Heather to call for the vote.
Wait, can I say one more thing before we vote?
You can.
This is where I get to try and sway my fellow commissioners. I understand why these buffer zones are in. We have them for schools, we have them for churches, we have them for other things. In my opinion, I don't think most churches will have a problem with having one of these types of businesses close to them, because they're generally there to minister to the public, and it just gives them a greater opportunity to go out and minister to certain people that they might want to. So I don't think it's a problem having these kind of businesses within the 300-foot zone.
You should talk to your legislator. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right, Heather, please call the vote.
Commissioner Steiner?
Nay.
Commissioner Maloney?
Nay.
Commissioner Walters?
Nay.
Vice Chairman Barnes?
Yay.
Chairman Bray?
Yes. On a vote of 3-2, you have failed to approve the special use permit for the Church at Estrella Crossings Business Park Planned Area Development District. With that, just so that everybody knows, this is purely an advisory council. That is our vote. That's our recommendation to council. I think there probably needs to be a great deal of work done moving into the council meeting, but they are the final body to make the decision for the city. So, and I think, can you give me the date of when that would? December 17th? Okay. So, thank you guys for coming out and appreciate it. With that, I will move on to agenda item 8.4. This is the use permit for hazardous process property, general industrial area, and I will open the public hearing.
Chairman Bray, Commission members, as you noted, this is a use permit request for hazardous process on property in the I-2 General Industrial Area of the Airport Commerce Center, PAD. The property is located at the easterly end of La Estrella, which is located south of MC 85 and east of South Bullard Avenue. You can see from the aerial photograph, this is the subject property. It's adjacent to the property that you considered earlier tonight. It is also adjacent to Rodolfo Brothers Plastering, Delmonte Factory, and a couple other industrial type uses. The property itself, as I noted, is zoned an I-2 General Industrial in Airport Commerce Center, PAD. The property to the west is also in the I-2 General Industrial area, and the property to the north is in the I-1 portion of that PAD. The use permit's being requested because the zoning ordinance requires that any use that involves hazardous processes or explosive storage in the I-2 General Industrial Park District be approved by the fire chief and obtain a use permit. The definition section of the ordinance defines what is a hazardous material or explosive as any substance characterized as flammable solids, corrosive materials, radioactive materials, etc. Since the proposed use is the construction of a cyclotron, which will be a proton accelerator that will create radioactive material, it was determined that this was considered a potentially hazardous process, and so the use permit would be required. Arizona Isotope Science Research Corporation is proposing the construction of a cyclotron to produce radioactive isotopes that are used in medical imaging and diagnosis. The isotopes will be manufactured using a cyclotron, as I said, which is a particle accelerator that uses electrical power to accelerate charged particles in a spiral path. They propose to use what's called a Cyclone 70, which is a 140-ton unit with a diameter of about 12 feet. It will be encased within a vault that has 10-foot thick concrete walls and will be accessed through doors with similar thickness, which must be enclosed in order to activate the cyclotron. This is a photograph of the cyclotron vault, and then inside the vault is the piece of equipment. Basically, the cyclotron bombards a target that is about the size of a pocket watch that has a film of rubidium on it, and by doing it, it degrades into a strontium-82, which is radioactive. That is then taken and shipped to a medical supplier who makes it into the form that is used to inject into the body and then is used in radio imaging. It's quite advanced technology, and there is limited equipment like this and that's available throughout the United States, and so this will be fulfilling a need that is growing. The building will have a total of 83,000 square feet, and it will be constructed in 2 phases. The first phase would be about 42,000 square feet and will house the cyclotron in this area. The balance of the building will be offices and labs where they operate the facility and conduct scientific research. The site has adequate parking, and when the facility is constructed and then ready to place in operation, it will first have received a license from the Arizona Bureau of Radiation Control, which will include review of the facility construction plans, construction inspections, and subsequent monitoring of the site. We have reviewed the proposal against the 2 criteria for evaluating a use permit, and we have found that the proposed use is consistent with that. And based on that review, we have recommended that the use permit be approved subject to the stipulations in the staff report. And I will stand for any questions that you might have on this item.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions for Joe? None? Is the applicant present? Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Sheldon, S-H-E-L-D-O-N, Trubach, T-R-U-B as in bat, A-T-C-H. My address is 6631 North Los, L-O-S, Leones, L-E-O-N-E-S, Drive, Tucson, 85718. If I may, I'd like to read from a letter that Brian Dalkey wrote to us on March 10th, 2015. The City of Goodyear is pleased to issue this letter of interest and support for Arizona Isotope Science Research Corporation, which plans to construct and operate a facility in Goodyear, Arizona. Recently, the City of Goodyear has undergone an extensive study to create an environment that will attract a diverse mixture of companies in the healthcare services and medical device industries. We see Arizona Isotopes as one of those companies that can be a catalyst for further industry development in our community. In addition, Arizona Isotopes will also bring the opportunity for innovative research and development. We are excited to be bringing a new high-tech sciences enterprise to Goodyear. Goodyear has everything companies like Arizona Isotopes need to operate and grow their businesses. The City of Goodyear is dedicated to our business relationship and the mutual benefit this brings to our citizens and businesses. We have been working for over 5 years to get to this point, and we are glad that we finally have made it to this point. The machine is bigger than other cyclotrons because it will make a particular chemical which, for diagnoses, which needs a little higher energy. However, there are several cyclotrons in the valley. Before I came here, I stopped off at Mayo and was given a tour of their cyclotron. And they, of course, also have a much more powerful linear accelerator than this machine will be. I personally have been very involved in the nuclear and radioactive industry for many years. I was a lawyer for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for Commonwealth Edison, which is now Exelon, the largest nuclear utility in the country, and more recently for Bechtel as the regulatory counsel to the Yucca Mountain project, where all the waste was to be buried. That got killed politically. The point of my reciting that is that I know the area, I am committed to safety, and I know that the Bureau of Radiation Control will work with us to make sure that we maintain safety throughout our entire period of operation. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant?
I just have one question of interest. I noticed that the building is 42 feet tall.
Yes.
Is the cyclotron that large? Or?
Well, the cyclotron is quite heavy, and we need an overhead crane to move things around. So no, the cyclotron isn't that tall, but we do need room to move things up and down.
It's like a bridge crane.
Pardon me?
A bridge crane.
A bridge
that
crane,
runs through there.
yes.
And
Yes,
those
sir.
walls look feet thick.
Well,
The concrete walls look.
that's to make sure that no radiation gets out. When the machine is on, it's like a very high-powered X-ray machine. You don't want to be in the room with it, just like when you go to the dentist, the assistant will take an X-ray and will go out of the room. You don't need 10-foot thick walls there because the machine isn't as powerful. But once the machine is off, it's off. So the radiation is only there when the machine is on, and it's all arranged so that you cannot be inside the machine when the machine is on. And let me reiterate that these doors are the same 10-foot wide. They run on railroad tracks and are basically plugs that pull out. So you can go in there and do whatever you need to do, and then you have to come out, the plugs go in, and the machine goes on. Okay, anything else? Thank you.
No.
Any comments from the public? No, you're fine.
Sorry to fill out a speaker. My name is Brian Goretzky. It's Goretzki. Address is 4814 South 40th Street, Phoenix 85040. I'm the chief of the Bureau of Radiation Control for Arizona Department of Health Services. I've been working with them for the last 2 or 3 years and just came to, in case you guys had any questions. Currently, we have 6 cyclotrons that produce certain types of isotopes, not the energy. Currently, about 16.9 MeV. Sheldon mentioned the one at Mayo that we just approved maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And then we also approved a proton accelerator, which is actually higher energy than what they're putting in. So I just came in case anyone had any questions. Feel free.
Questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Any other comments from the public speakers cards? Seeing none, I will take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move this commission approve 18-300-00008 use permit request for a hazardous process.
Second.
Before I do any more, I closed the public hearing. I got in trouble over there. It has been moved by Commissioner Walters, seconded by Commissioner Steiner, to approve the special use permit process 18-300-00008. Is there any discussion? For the record, I would love a tour once it's up and running. With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to, thank you. Agenda item 8.5. This is the rezoning from agriculture urban to light industrial. And Steve, you're up. Oh, I'll open the public hearing. I'm starting to lose it over here, yeah.
Never miss a chance to use the gavel.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. We do have a rezoning item here before you tonight. Property is right here, just a little bit south of us, Bullard and Yuma, about 114 acres. Pretty much some farm fields to the north and west. We've got a couple distribution centers going in this location here. We got the airport and proposed industrial to the south. This is per the general plan. These are the land uses that we have. We have business and commerce for much of the site. We have industrial here and taking out this corner here. But as you can see, pretty much this whole area is either business and commerce or intended for industrial type uses. And these are the current zoning districts. We have agricultural urban for the subject property. We have industrial surrounding it pretty much. Industrial PAD to the south. The proposal is to go from the agricultural urban to the I-1, the light industrial. And this is what the developer would anticipate developing, industrial complex, several smaller buildings. However, just wanted to point out, we are rezoning to I-1 light industrial and not a planned area development, so there is no tie to a specific development plan or specific uses. Whatever is allowed in zoning could be allowed in this property. It could be several smaller buildings, or it could be one or two larger buildings. And with this property developing along Bullard Road, Mr. Chairman, Commission members, you may remember discussion along Bullard, what was the vision for Bullard. Council did meet on October 22nd, and they did share with staff some of what they would like to see develop along this corridor. And generally what they provided staff was industrial development, light industrial development would be acceptable. However, what they would like to see would be enhanced landscaping and hardscape along the corridor, branding, entry monuments to showcase this area here. And so as a result of that council direction, staff did work with landscape architect, planning design firm, and they did come up with design guidelines for the Bullard corridor. And I just placed a few of the images within this presentation. And again, just highlighting some of the intersection improvements with pavement, artificial turf, formal tree groves, and signage. And then this just gives you an indication of what's planned along this mile stretch, basically from Van Buren south to Yuma. And as you can see, it's a cohesive, formal design that we will be asking all of the development along this corridor to comply with. And because we did have this item as a rezoning, it does require public notice. We did notice this item as required by our zoning code. To date, staff has not received any inquiries or opposition to this project. With our review, we do find a proposed light industrial zoning is compatible with the surrounding area, with the intended and existing uses in the area. We do find it consistent with our general plan, with the intended uses that the plan proposed for this area. As such, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending approval subject to those stipulations that are in draft ordinance 2018-1414. With that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for staff at this time?
No.
Is the applicant here? You wish to speak?
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the time. I am Fritz Weiler. I work with Prologis, which is a global real estate investment trust. headquartered out of San Francisco. We are very active developers here and owners across Greater Phoenix. We have more than 6 million square feet across the valley today. And we've been working closely with the city staff and economic development teams to come up with a new commerce park that will be supporting the growth of Greater Goodyear. We are, as a publicly listed company, we are self-funding. We develop it on our own balance sheet. We are looking to develop the park. The sample layout plan that you saw earlier contemplates 6 different buildings coming in, a little over 2 million square feet to be developed over time. We've been very active developers here and have a number of parks across Greater Phoenix. As we were requesting the rezone approval to go to I-1, which is light industrial, this is to work with our global customers. We have over 5,500 customers around the world, a little over 760 million square feet. We operate in 19 countries. Again, we're publicly listed, so we're very easy to figure out what we do and how we do it. Top customers are the Amazons, the UPSs of the world, Procter & Gamble's, many of the big pharma companies. As an industrial owner, our customers are really focused on global supply chain distribution as well as local consumption. We would be planning to develop this probably over 3 phases is the expectation for the 6 buildings. The expectation would be that pending rezone approval that we would be able to be actively developing the site within the next 6 months, starting next year. We've developed a large-scale park down on 55th Avenue, and Lower Buckeye is an easy reference example of, it was about a 157-acre park, where we attracted customers including TJ Maxx, Stitch Fit, if you're familiar with them, and Amazon. This is very typical of what you'll see in our parks. We've been working closely with the city as we have the landscaping details up there. We're in support of the vision that the city has for the Bullard Ave corridor. We've looked at what the standard setback requirements and easements would be, and working with the team, have agreed to enhanced landscaping buffers and setbacks. And we would expect over the next 3 to 4 years to have the park developed and built out overall. We are surrounded on all 4 sides by industrial uses. To our immediate north, there's a project that's going through the city right now for a roughly 750,000 foot industrial building. To our immediate east, there are 3 large-scale distribution centers, Chewy.com, there's Lincoln's developing a 900,000 foot project over there, and EJM has some land for yet another one. The airport is, of course, to our immediate south, just across Yuma, and there are several data center users looking at the land to our immediate west. So we are kind of the industrial donut hole on the overlay, if you will, and therefore we're requesting your support for this rezone approval. With that, I welcome any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? All right. Thank you, sir. Is there any comments from the public? Any speakers cards? Perfect. I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve 18-200-00010.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Steiner, seconded by Commissioner Barnes to approve the rezoning from agricultural urban to light industrial. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. We will move on to 8.6. This is a preliminary plat of PV 303 West. Steve, you are up.
You know, before he starts, let me ask, can I ask council, I'm not precluded from voting on this one, am I? Because of my interest in the property on the other side of the freeway?
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Barnes, you were the design architect for Refinery Church, correct?
Correct.
And you don't own property within the affected area, do you?
No.
And you don't have any business associated with this area or the adjacent properties, do you?
No.
Then you're not precluded.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, we are located here for this preliminary plat, 303 Indian School Road. Got about 121 acres within this area, within the PV 303 planned area development. And this is what is called Phase West 2. And we're preliminary platting the whole thing, 5 lots. And this is an industrial development. This zoning been around a while, since 2007. Last amended just this last year for this piece right here. We went for higher building heights within this south half, this West 3B here. So it's been amended several times since 2007. With this piece here in light industrial, they want to do 5 lots just to facilitate development of the property, to parcel it off and be able to develop it. We do find this proposed subdivision, it is consistent with our technical requirements of subdivision platting, and it is consistent with the PV 303 PAD. With that, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending approval subject to those 9 steps in the staff report. Available for any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for staff? Is the applicant present? No? No applicant? Awesome. With that, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve 18-500-00019.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Maloney, seconded by Commissioner Steiner to approve the preliminary plat of PV 303 West 2. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Agenda item 8.7, this is preliminary plat for the first part, PV 303 West 3, and Steve.
Thank you again. We are basically in the same planned area development. We're just moving across the street. We were here. We are here right now. Basically, this whole section of land, about 600 acres that are being platted. Again, 5 lots, 1 tract. And this is basically this whole section here, Indian School, down to proposed Thomas, citrus, and cotton. And we got the 5 lots that the section will be subdivided into. And again, the property owner is doing this to facilitate the development of the site for light industrial development. Like before, we find this consistent with our technical requirements, consistent with the PV 303 PAD, and we are recommending approval subject to 9 stipulations.
Any questions for staff? Take it the applicant's probably not here. With that, I will take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 18500-00012.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Barnes, seconded by Commissioner Walters to approve the preliminary plat of first part PV 303 West 3. Is there any discussion?
No.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Agenda item 8.8, this is preliminary plat of stray parcels 11E. Alex, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Good evening. The preliminary plat for stray parcel 11E consists of approximately 29 acres, 93 lots, and 4 tracts. It's this one to the west. 11F1 will be coming before you in the next month or so, which is why it's in this image. The parcel is located within the Lucero neighborhood of Estrella and designated for low-medium density residential. It is, like I mentioned, adjacent to parcel F1. The PAD amendment that the commission reviewed last month was approved by City Council last Monday. That amendment did not affect this parcel. Therefore, the preliminary plat is still in conformance with the development requirements of the Lucero PAD and all city engineering and planning standards. The main access to this parcel will be provided off Sendero Drive, which ultimately connects to Hillside Drive within the community, but a secondary access is to be provided through parcel 11.F1, this is foreshadowing of next month, but it connects to Hillside Drive, both parcels. Recommended in the stipulations of approval within your staff report is the requirement of the secondary connections, whether those be the permanent streets at the time of building 11E or temporary access easements or temporary access roads in order to meet the emergency access requirements. Like I mentioned, this has been reviewed by staff and recommended for approval subject to the stipulations in your staff report. I'm available for questions, and Pete Tykey's here as well. Thank you.
Any questions for Alex? Any questions for Pete? I take it you're good, Pete? Perfect. With that, I'll take a motion on the preliminary plat for the Estrella Park.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve 18-500-00017.
I second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Steiner, seconded by Commissioner Maloney to approve the preliminary plat of Estrella Parcel 11E. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Agenda item number 9, staff communications.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly hope that each of you had a safe and happy Thanksgiving. We've had quite a lot of activity going on in the city, as you can evidence by just driving around and seeing all the construction going on, which we're delighted to have. And so if you'll indulge me for just a couple moments at this point in time, I'm going to give you the sort of briefing of the things that you all have considered that have rolled over to the council. And there's quite a few. So on October 22nd, the council approved Estrella Parcel 11.A1. That was a subdivision plat, which is in the Lucero community. They likewise approved the Palmgate final plat, which is just right down here on Van Buren, which created some parcels out in front of the existing building. The use permit for a Culver's drive-through at Hudson Commons on Estrella Parkway was likewise approved by council. The La Privada plat was approved, the final plat was approved by council. And that created I forgot the number of lots, quite a few lots, single-family lots in West Goodyear, so we're excited about that moving forward. Importantly for the future of the city, the development agreement for the Rainbow Valley PAD, if you recall that particular case, was approved, and the zoning case was approved by council on October 2nd. So that was quite a undertaking that we were happy to partner with the property owners and their team on to advance that. That essentially could open up a whole new portion of the city for development. So this was an important step moving forward for the city. Parcel 7.1 in Australia, sort of in the Montecito area, if you will, was also approved by council. Some replatting of properties in Cantamia. The use permit was approved by council. The use permit for the assisted living facility or home in Palm Valley that we considered our last meeting, that you all staff recommended denial of, you all recommended denial to council. Council did in fact uphold your recommendation of denial, so that was not approved on October 22nd. Lucero PAD amendment to adjust some setbacks a little bit was approved by council. And then the Liberty 303 rezoning up north of Indian School and west of Cotton Lane was likewise approved by council. So as you can tell, we have quite a lot going on, and we appreciate your contributions and time, volunteering your time for the city and helping us move forward. And on behalf of Katie and the team, Steve, Assistant City Attorney Lisa Maxey Mullen sitting in the back who's trying to hide. Alex, everybody, Sarah, we'd like to wish you all a very happy holiday season, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, whatever it is that you choose to celebrate, and Happy New Year as well.
Thank you. You too.
Same to you.
Thank you. Yes, keep up the good work. Appreciate what you all do, and safe and happy holidays to all of you and your families. Any other comments for the staff? With that, I am required now to read this. The next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be held on January 9, 2019 at 6 p.m. at the Goodyear Municipal Court and Council Chambers. With that, meeting adjourned.